We'll go ahead and call our Thursday, July 11, 2024 Roanoke County School Board work session to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Greenway.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linden.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Clemens.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes, ma'am. Item 2.01, Elementary Music Instructional Resource Adoption. Mr. Brian Weeks.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. In a nutshell, over the past few months, a committee was brought together under Rick Elliott, who is obviously our music supervisor, and we considered 3 different options, and ultimately they chose to go with Quaver Music. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So if there's any questions, let me know. If not, we'll move on to the next item.
All right, appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is something for sure we all need to agree on consent for the next agenda.
Okay.
Or next meeting.
Item 2.02, request to surplus William Byrd High School cheer uniforms from 2004 to 2006 and appropriate proceeds to the school for their cheer program. Mr. Travis Anderson.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. So, simple request, we're getting new cheer uniforms. You can see they're about 20 years old. Some were 20 years to 18 years old, so we're replacing them. And so we would like to sell those off as a fundraiser to our community members and use that money to fund the cheer program at Byrd.
Sounds good to me. It's a
Sounds
consent
good.
agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item
Thank you.
2.03, surplus request for retired technology equipment. Mr. Jeff Terry.
Will that also be a consent agenda item?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I should have mentioned I could have officially addressed Mr. Anderson as Principal Anderson. Oh, yeah. Now that it's July 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. Each year, we request the retirement of aging technology equipment. This year, we have approximately 8,000 devices that consist of laptops, desktops, monitors, printers, mobile devices, Promethean active panels, and computer accessories. This equipment was previously assigned to administrators, students, and teachers. As part of the surplus process, the state contract vendor Powerhouse Recycling will ensure proper data removal and allow for environmentally friendly destruction of all equipment. They will also pay us for the remaining residual value of the surplus equipment. All surplus proceeds have been included in the FY25 budget as a funding source for the technology replacement plan. Staff recommends to surplus the approximately 8,000 retired technology devices and prepare them for sale. Powerhouse Recycling will provide a proof of destruction document for all computer equipment, and this includes erasing all data using the Department of Defense standards. So, any questions? And definitely this will be on the consent if you're okay with that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Terry.
Thank you.
Item 2.04, request to accept and appropriate $134,825.65 for the fiscal year 2024 School Safety and Security Grant.
Yeah, thank you. Several weeks ago, school divisions across the state received welcome news from the VDOE about additional funding available for technology equipment for safety and security of our school buildings. This is a one-time $18.5 million investment consisting of funding from the state general funds and the federal pandemic, state, and local fiscal recovery funds. Each school division was given a base award of $50,000 with additional funding on top of that based on security equipment already deployed in each district. For Roanoke County, our total allotment of state funding from the grant is $78,038.61 and $56,787.05 from federal funding, for the grant total of $134,825.65. These funds would be used to replace aging security cameras at Hidden Valley High School. Also, the new cameras will work with the new vaping system that's going to be deployed in all the high schools. This security grant funding must be obligated by December 31st of this year, Any additional funds that are needed to finish the camera system at Hidden Valley High would be covered in the FY25 technology budget. This one-time grant does not have a local match. Staff recommends approval of the grant and appropriation of $134,825.65 for the purchase of camera equipment to be installed at Hidden Valley High School by the IT staff.
Sounds good. Any questions?
Is this bringing Hidden Valley up? Are the other high schools already?
The other high schools were included in part of our regular technology rotation plan, and Hidden Valley had some newer equipment at the time, so this brings some of the others up, this brings Hidden Valley up to match some of the others. In the meantime, we've had a different kind of camera system that will now work with the vaping solution that we have. So as we move forward, we can see other schools moving to this type system.
Thank you, Mr. Terry.
Thanks.
Again, consent agenda?
What is it not?
I was thinking, if we change the process,
Are you taking
Just want to make sure Angela gets it correct.
Angela's been doing this for a long time. Item 2.05, project updates. Mr. Todd Kegels.
Chuck, yeah, we're plugged in, but it's not. Thank you, sir. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I just have updates on our ongoing projects, and I'm just going to hit the highlights. We have an extensive list of ongoing projects, but I would encourage you when we get to the end, I have a project list there at the end. If you see anything in there or anything that's not on the list that you have questions about, please feel free to ask about them. The first thing I wanted to discuss was the purchase of the activity buses that the board approved as part of this year's budget. It was $500,000 to get 5 activity buses for the high schools. And I had previously communicated with you on their availability for September and October. What we've since discovered is that that dealer had this bus right here on the right-hand side. What we had intended to purchase was the ones that we, or a similar one to the one we bought for BCAT last year, which is more like the one over here on the left, which has, they both seat the same number of passengers, but the one on the left has 2 areas in the back that allow you to put equipment in there. They have cages, and you can put tennis rackets or whatever you're using the bus for. You have space there for them. The one on the right, which is the one that's available from the dealer we usually use, doesn't have that space in the back. So when I originally put this on the agenda, there was a third option, but that doesn't look like it's viable at this time because that's more than a year out. So both of these are available now in the September-October timeframe. The one on the left, which I think is the one we want for this purpose, puts us about $3,000 over budget for each bus, so about $15,000 total. Which we can cover from the fleet replacement fund after speaking with Ms. Peterson. So I guess really I just would like input from you, whether you want to go with the short bus that's in budget, that's available right now, or the longer one that's just slightly over budget and I think would be more suitable to the intended uses of these buses. I agree with you.
I think we wait. If that's going to suit us better, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's not a matter of waiting. It's a matter of they're both available in the same time frame.
Okay.
The third option was that the company that's providing the one on the right could provide the longer bus at a slightly lower cost, but it was more than a year out. So that's why I didn't even put it up here, because I knew we wanted to get those into service right now. So it's just a matter of pay a little bit more, get the extra space on the left, similar to what we have for the bus at BCAT, or pay a little less, but maybe get one that doesn't meet our needs quite as well.
I drove the BCAT bus, and it is nice having that extra space in the back, and I think it'll suit our students teachers better in the future. So it makes sense to spend a little extra money.
Just from the
Like
equipment
those
standpoint, storing the equipment.
band equipment, yeah.
Exactly.
Anything.
And the BCAT bus doesn't even have the cage in the back. These actually have some cages to contain equipment or water coolers or whatever you might want to put in
Yeah.
the back. So I do think that's the best. That would be my recommendation, is that we go ahead, cover the extra, and purchase the longer
It's
buses.
the same number of seating.
Yes,
14.
ma'am, 14 passengers.
And we're certain this qualifies as a multi-use vehicle
Yes,
for
sir.
which you don't need a CDL.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, sir.
So what do we need to do with that one? We put that on consent?
I don't think we
I don't
actually
think
have to do
so.
anything. I just wanted
Okay.
input from the board in terms of what they
Make
wanted
sure
to
it's
do,
good.
but I don't think it requires any action. We have funding already in place, so.
And thank you for covering the extra out of your
Oh,
budget.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, since you've already budgeted, I mean, we've already authorized the purchase, he's got the funds to cover, so I don't think you need to take any action.
Okay, just where we are on some of our big projects, and some of the ones that the board has funded over the last several months. That's the north side bus parking lot. We have actually started. We've removed the fence and cut down all the trees along that back side there. This one, the paving is probably going to be done in the September timeframe. It's you'll see here in a minute, we finished at Bonsack. They're moving to Hidden Valley Middle School to pave the track here in about 2 weeks. Then when they're done with that, they'll move out here to Northside and do that one next. So that's still a month or so out. This is the retaining wall over at Hidden Valley High School at the baseball field. On the right is the photograph. You remember that wall was coming down. You can see all the pieces, the broken posts. It was going to come down very soon, so we removed it and installed over here on the left the concrete block retaining wall. That's actually complete now. There was a small strip that needed to be paved right in that area right there. They did that today, so that's 100% finished. Two projects here. This was the Cave Spring High School track and the runway over here on the left. That's the runway at Hidden Valley. Right there is the runway at Hidden Valley High School. Those are both finished. Talked to the athletic director and the coach at Cave Spring. They're thrilled with the outcome. It looks fantastic. It looks brand new, and the runway same with the runway over there at Hidden Valley High School. So. Board funded both of those, and they're done and ready for student use. There's not a lot to look at when you do a sewer line replacement, but this is a big deal for Mountain View because there were constant sewage backups there, and it was you get an idea just from the amount of earth that's disturbed there how big a project this was, but it's completely finished now. So that ought to serve them well for many years to come. This is Burlington Elementary School down in the basement. Remember, they had requested a trailer a couple of years back. We had put that off a year for funding. Then you all approved funding, and what we decided to do instead of installing the trailer was to renovate the rooms that were in the basement that had been abandoned. And you see why they were abandoned. They were in very rough condition. It's kind of like an art project where you don't want people to see it until you're finished, because it's about 90% finished, and it will be finished by the end of the month. They're actually, these bare floors here in the middle and the stair treads over there on the left, those are all being done today. Should have actually been finished by the end of the day today, into tomorrow if they didn't finish today, and then we'll put up the base moldings. They've removed that old deck that was right here on the outside. Put up this little retaining wall. We're going to pave, well, my cursor doesn't show up, but that area right there in front of the retaining wall, that will be paved as kind of the last step of the project. All new windows on that side of the building. They're putting up new gutters, new window sills, and those classrooms are going to be like state of the art when you go over there. They're going to look brand new. So if you want to go over and take a tour, give me a call, in a week or so when we're completely finished. Be happy to take you over there and show you what we've done. But they've got two full-size, essentially brand new classrooms from the ground up. So they're super excited over there for the extra space. The baseball field lip at Hidden Valley High School, just wanted to, just share an update. That's in progress. We've met with contractors out there, and they're in the process of preparing their quotes and sending them to us. So, we just got started on that on July 1st. So, a lot hasn't happened there, but we have met with contractors and should have their proposals here soon. They did actually, despite the size of that lip, a couple of them have remarked that, our fields are not in as bad a shape as we might think they are relative to other fields that they work on. This is Bonsack Elementary School. Remember, we did the paved play area assessments, and we ranked all the play areas that needed to be paved. This was number 1 on the list. And you see in the next picture that is completely done. Adams Paving did that for us. They did a fantastic job. It's super smooth and looks great. The only thing left to do here is to get it lined, and we're coordinating with the fellow who typically does that for us, and that'll be done here in the next couple of weeks. But it looks fantastic. And so, as we move into a new round of minor capital funding, we'll start proposing the next play areas that are on the list to be done. I mentioned this one already. It's the current condition of the track at Hidden Valley High School. I actually talked to Adams Paving won this bid also. So they just finished at Bonsack, and now they'll move here. I think the week of July 22nd is their target to get started. Should take about 2 weeks to finish. So we're hoping this one will be done before school starts also. And then when it's done, they'll move over to Northside High School and do the bus lot. This is Glenver Elementary School. If you'll recall, you approved minor capital funding to replace a large section of the roof there. So that's underway, and will be finished before, hopefully before the end of the month, but definitely before school starts. Just a quick update on where we are on the comprehensive agreement on the CTE Center and the 2 elementary schools. You know that Branch already provided an agreement that is within our budget, and we've, as part of that, you get assumptions and clarifications, so our consultant has looked over that. It's bounced back and forth between Branch and us several times, and hopefully by the end of the day today, certainly by the end of the day tomorrow, it'll be ready to go to the attorneys for review, and then our target is to get it to the Board of Supervisors for their next meeting for approval. That's the list of not everything we have going on, but all the projects that we track are on there. I'll give you a second to look through it, and certainly if you see anything or if you're aware of anything else that you would like to ask about, I'll be happy to answer questions for you. Just a couple of notable things on there. You approved the money for the William Byrd High School softball net. We're working on that with the contractors. There were a couple of minor tweaks on placement of poles and things like that, but we are planning to start that here very soon. We're replacing the carpet over at Hidden Valley Middle School. That started today. They've laid about half of the carpet in the library there, so we're working through that. We've also got some other things we'd like to do over there. William Byrd Middle School's getting all the bleachers in the gym replaced. The demolition's been done. All that stuff's been removed. The old bleachers have been removed. The new ones won't be in until about October. And so we've worked with the school to make sure that they can have their volleyball games at the high school if needed until the new bleachers are installed. I don't know. I don't see anything else up there that I would like to tell you about, but if you have questions about any of that stuff, happy to address it.
I know you guys are working hard. Thank you.
They are. Summer's very busy
really,
for us.
and it was very hot. It's been hot.
Yes, yes it has.
Appreciate all your hard work.
So we got the CTE concession letter. How about the elementaries? Is that on the way, or?
I do have that. They submitted an updated GMP package, and as a result of our request, they included in that. I'll send that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Anything else?
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate you
thank
staying
you,
on top of things. Item 2.06, review and discussion of student mobile device policy. Ms. Tammy Newcomb.
Thank you, members of the board and Dr. Nicely. I'm here today to review and discuss our student mobile device. Admin regulation we already have in place in our cell phone policy. I know that's been a topic of conversation, I think since January of last year with the school board, and so we wanted to go over that again today and talk about some options. So I'm going to go over what we have. A brief background. In January of 2023, Roanoke County School Board, we adopted a stricter regulation on student use of personal mobile devices. That being at the high school level, it was to be out of sight in the classroom. But it did give teachers the discretion to use the cell phones for instructional purposes. And then this summer, we had planned to review the current regulation and discuss possible additional restrictions for high schools. And then July 8th, this week, Governor announced an Executive Order 33. So we're going to look at all of that and how that impacts Roanoke County. Our current admin regulation, and the highlighted part tells you the difference between the elementary and middle school, which they have zero use of the cell phone in the building. They can have it on their possession out of sight, but it cannot be out in the classroom from bell to bell, from the beginning to the end. The high school, however, they can have their personal mobile devices out, except for in the classroom, and that is when the teacher gives them permission to use during instruction. They are allowed to bring it out during class. Other than that, they can have it in the hallways, between classes, before school, after school, and also in the lunchroom. That's what we currently are practicing. On July 8th, Governor Youngkin's executive order, he did provide the rationale of the order, which I'll go over, which was really our rationale at the school board of why we wanted to look at our school board, our policy in place. And he required actions by the state agencies. He directed state superintendents to conduct listening sessions in each region, and I believe our region is July 31st at Northside from 4 to 5:30.
Yeah, and that's new information as of today, because when I got back into the office this morning, they had a meeting on the 8th, and so the state superintendent is literally doing like a listening tour in each region of the state. So since I get to chair our region, I chose our Roanoke County location, which we are fairly centrally located, because it goes from Allegheny down to Henry County and in Pennsylvania. So I worked with Dr. Coons this morning to do July 31st, which fit her schedule. So they're trying to really listen to teachers. In fact, a lot of these regional sessions are being done like in the mornings and that kind of thing during work hours, even though teachers aren't working during the summer. But she agreed that we could do ours on that date from 4 to 5:30, and I worked with Northside High School to be able to do that over there in the library. So just that's, again, hot off the press as of today.
Also, to define the cell phone free education based on feedback from the research, including understanding of what is age appropriate. Published model implementation plans to give districts various options. Published draft guidance for policies and procedures by August 15th, including how parents can communicate with children for typical reasons such as forgotten items and pickup times. The VDOE will issue final guidance by September 16th. School divisions that do not already have policies should adopt one by January 1st, and we do already have a policy, which is good. That's good. The rationale, there are a couple things that point out, and I did get this from the Anxious Generation from John Hattie, and that was also what the governor in his order also had the same information. In-person play-based social interactions are fundamental to a child's healthy social development. Mobile devices are present even when teens are spending time together, which diminishes the quality of their interactions. Sleep deprivation, late night mobile device use is known to be disruptive to sleep. Attention fragmentation, the average teen receives 11 notifications per waking hour. This pulls the user's attention away from whatever they are doing, and this can compromise an individual's ability to focus deeply on a task. And addiction, the dopamine rush that users experience is countered by symptoms of withdrawal, including dysphoria, irritability, insomnia, and anxiety. Also, it really does impact the mental health, and this is from the U.S. National Survey of Drug Use and Health. 145% increase in reported cases of depressive episodes among girls since 2012, and 161% increase for boys. And we all know in 2012, the social media is when Instagram came about, and some of the other social apps that our students were had access to. 188% increase among girls in ER visits for self-harm since 2010, and 167% rise in suicide rates. For boys, a 48% increase in self-harm related ER visits and a 91% surge in suicide rates. The 2022 Pew report indicates that 46% of teens describe themselves as being online almost constantly. This is the first generation of teens in the United States to go through adolescence with this level of connectivity, has become more anxious, depressed, and suicidal than any other generation recorded before them. And I also got that stat from the John Hattie book, The Anxious Generation. Academic achievement, of course, is impacted. Studies show that students who access their mobile devices during class learn less and achieve lower grades. Substantial phone and social media use have a cumulative, lasting, and detrimental impact on adolescents' ability to focus and engage in their studies. Again, this is our current admin reg. And the options that I'm going to show you next go with the highlighted area of what we may want to consider for our high school students. We're not proposing any change to elementary and middle. Option 1 is to keep the high school policy as is. Option 2 is to amend the high school policy to prohibit any use during class time. And what this would mean was we would eliminate the teacher discretion even for instruction. And option 3 is to amend the high school policy to mirror the one for elementary and middle school grades, which means not allowed at all during the school day, even during lunch and in between classes. Our recommendations, adopt either option 2 as a starting point or option 3, and give extra weight by converting from an admin reg, which we currently have, to an actual school board policy numbered, 6.42A. Some considerations includes all personal mobile devices. I mean, we would have to think about cell phones, smartwatches, AirPods, earphones. Unfortunately, most of our kids have more than one phone. So if they came in with their AirPods and their smartwatches and we think they have a phone that's put away, there could be another one. So do know that. We experience that now. So would include an exception to photography and graphic art classes as needed. And students are allowed to access the classroom phone if an emergency arises and in the front office for other needs. So there are other phones in the buildings that they would not have to have their phone to be able to contact a parent or whomever if there was an emergency. Additional considerations if we chose to go option 3, the Yonder pouches. This is, as you can see in the picture, they are large enough that you can put up AirPods, smartwatches, those kind of things, and the phone in the pouch. It creates a phone-free space for students and it minimizes distractions. The students can't get access to it if it's in the pouch. Schools have access points that demagnetize the pouch for students to retrieve the devices. And students are responsible for the pouch. They would hold on to them. I believe when we spoke to the vendor to include our high schools, and I say including the CTE center, that would mean like for the devices to unlock, it would be $148,000 for the beginning. Again, here are the options. Keep the high school policy as it is. Number 2 would be amend the high school policy to prohibit any use during class. And number 3 would be to go and do as we would mirror the elementary and middle school policy as it's written.
I've got a question, and Dr. Hughes, you may be a good person to answer this. With all of the talks of addiction, with option 3, would we expect to need more counseling services or some sort of support for kids that may very well have a problem separating themselves from a phone?
Yeah, I would think.
I agree with that.
I can see some problems there that we may have to address.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any opinions?
Well, the one thing I don't want is for our teachers to have to be the police, so, if you go with option 2, I think you still have that problem of, they're still going to be available. And if you go with option 3, they're not available, so it's less for our teachers to have to police in terms of looking after, checking if they're looking at their phones, if they're not, and so on. So
I think as far as class time goes, option 2 and 3 would be the same. So either way, they're going to have to enforce it, right? So the difference would be in option 3, they couldn't have it between classes in the cafeteria, but during class, no use.
And there has to be consistency in that, and I think that we've
Absolutely.
shored up our policies to where we're backing our admin on that, correct?
I agree.
Yeah.
So without a firm policy in place, the teachers aren't going to feel supported. And they want to do their job, which is to teach our students. And to ask them to discipline
Right.
all the time is just really tough. So I like that Young can put together this executive order. However, we've been ahead of this, right? As a division, we've thought about this. We know. I listened to The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt as well, and it's scary what is happening to our students. I mean, we have a major youth mental health crisis right now. It's detrimental to their health. And somebody that I listened to use this analogy I thought was beautiful. He said, back in the day, we had data science that supported not smoking, right? You should not smoke. It was bad for your health. But yet in our schools, we had, I don't know about Roanoke County, but they had areas where kids could go and smoke a cigarette. We didn't know then what we know now. And same thing with these cell phones. We didn't know then what we know now. And now it's irrefutable. The data is out there. And if you have the facts, how can you turn away and look away from it and say it's okay if we know it's that detrimental to their health? And I think all of our departments over there would agree with us that we've known for a long time what this is doing to our students. So I do have a question for you, though. Sometimes it's better to think about these things with a question. So is there any strong evidence that supports cell phones in schools?
I don't know
Probably
research
not.
on that.
Having them
Yes.
available.
Is there any evidence that says cell phones really help our students?
I mean, as far as answering the question, obviously, a lot of people have different opinions about this, including parents, and in terms of what you get used to. In terms of research, that's not something that I think we have available or are aware of.
Sarcasm, but yeah, there's very
I thought
little.
so, but just
There's very little evidence that they're beneficial to our students, if any. I mean, academically, socially, emotionally,
Without a doubt, it's a distraction.
and distraction.
I mean, it's a distraction without a doubt.
Well, the bottom line is we're looking at this from an educational standpoint, right? So we know that there's been some disruption in classes, and so this is where we're evolving to.
And there's also the discipline piece. A
Yes.
lot of discipline issues.
I lean towards option 3 myself.
So the difference would be no use at all in option 3, where option 2 would allow in between classes, lunch, any type of recess type situation.
And one of the things, as Ms. Newcomb pointed out, I mean, as far as the executive order goes, I know it got a headline this week. I mean, if you dig into what the executive order actually says, it basically says, look, this is a serious problem. Definitely lays out all the rationale in terms of what to do about it. To school division policies, which fortunately, as Ms. Fajani said, we got ahead of the curve last year in terms of stronger policy. I think that what the executive order says, just for the good of the board as well as anybody listening, basically said, look, you need to arrive at a definition in terms of what this means, how it's implemented, what some best practices are, what age appropriate means. I mean, you can take that into consideration. So just to be clear, the executive order of itself basically says, hey, you need to look at this, gather information, make decisions, right? But just,
Well,
it doesn't definitively say do this, not this kind of thing.
Right. Well, Ms. Newcomb, you freshly coming from being a high school principal, so I think you would be a subject expert in this. Discipline-wise, how much discipline were you dealing with directly involved with cell phones being used inside the school during the day? I mean, I know we can't control it outside of school. Stuff happens in the evenings and nights where kids are bullied or kids are, made fun of or whatever the case is. How much of it Can you give us an idea how much of that is going on during the school day with
A
phones?
lot of communication goes on the cell phones, and so there are many times that students will come and bring a problem to us, and they will use their cell phone as evidence. Like, this is what was said to me, this is the screenshot I took of this, so it's a lot of that. We did have in place at my school, at our school at least, that if they had their phones out and they had been told not to have them out and they continue it, of course we would contact the parent, and then I would suspend the phone, which meant they would have to bring the phone in, I put it in a pouch, we put it underneath, we kept it for the day, and then they would come back and they got it out of the pouch we had, and those kind of things. And that was busy. We had quite a busy feat there. And I will tell you, just from my perspective as the high school principal last year and the years past, the gray area is the teacher discretion, because it is a fight for our teachers to get the students to put their phones away. So it's almost easier just to say, okay, it's going to come out the last 10 minutes or whatever, but then that causes a problem for the next teacher who will not allow it to out. So, because it is a huge undertaking.
Especially if it's an addiction.
Yeah, it is. So, and I will tell you, most of the time, our kids do what we ask them to do. So I think, if we make it clear to them what our expectation is, I feel like the majority of our kids will step up to that. There will be kids who won't, and so, as Ms. Vashani said, we do have to have policy in place to support them. So.
I have a couple of thoughts on it. I'm also glad in the executive order he does state that we need to have a policy in place, and I'm glad that we already do have that. I would say that what we have in place is reasonable. The other thing that he mentions is age appropriateness. So I feel like our high schoolers are our oldest students, so I think it makes sense that what we're asking them to do is different from what we're asking of the elementary and middle school students. I would definitely be a proponent of making it very clear about not having the phones in the classroom to kind of tighten that up. But I'm not sure that I would be a proponent of taking it away, like option 3 completely. The other thing that he mentions is buy-in from stakeholders, and so my request would be that we put a survey out, because a lot of parents are going to be affected by this, high school parents, and then teachers and staff. How are they going to be affected by this? So that would be my suggestion, is that we're getting input from stakeholders.
And I would agree with Ms. Clemens on that. I think the stakeholder engagement is going to be important, and we need to certainly. We'll see who may come to speak on that next Thursday at our meeting. We'll see how many we get to come July 31st over to Northside. And I think we need to give this some thought. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, and I know we've been thinking about it, but kids will need to understand the ramifications of if they do get there. We need to make sure that if we do put a policy in place, that we know, and teachers know, and students know, and parents know what the penalties will be if their phones are out, and what's going to take place. I think we can't make a decision real quick, in my opinion, without giving this a good bit of thought to, and getting that stakeholder feedback and listening to parents. I think is going to be something that we definitely need to.
I think when you mention stakeholder, you need to include a separate one for teachers as well.
Yes.
Because they are huge.
They're on the front lines.
Yes,
They
they
are on the
know,
front
they
lines.
know what's going on.
And I agree with you. I think the parents are an intricate part of this. And whatever policy we decide to go with, we do have to make sure that there's consistency across the board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe we can work up some sort of survey on that, and like Mr. Greenway said, have something separate for our staff.
Would you, just based on what I'm hearing, okay, lots of different views on this, would you want to start with doing the survey, get the input and so forth before making any further adjustments? The other option would be to take the step of, option 2 for now and do the survey. I mean, either one's fine. I'm also mindful, the timing, with school starting August 15th, we want to do that survey pretty quickly and then circle back around here pretty quickly in terms of anything that would impact the beginning of the school year.
Could we realistically do that in that timeline?
I think so. As far as survey, and that was today's the 11th. That gives us
Couple weeks.
As long as we heavily publicize it, right? I mean, this is obviously we're out of school right now. We'd have to heavily publicize it, get the results back. Might require a special meeting if you want to take action on it before.
I think it would be a good idea to do
August
that. I
15th.
mean, what do you guys think?
We also have the work session August 1st, right? Which we could, I think realistically report back by then.
So I just have one concern with the survey. How are we going to regulate or make sure that we have a balanced representation of the population giving their input? Because we're going to get a lot of high school students who are afraid that their addiction days are over. And it's like, really, would you, if you've got someone who's addicted to crack cocaine and you put their phone in their book bag, but it's there all day long, it's there, and this is the temptation is so real. So how are we going to make sure that the survey is actually parents and
Probably
not?
a way to do it is not make it anonymous. And in my view, is this something that needs to be anonymous? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know why it would matter to folks.
If it's not anonymous, they could put their
So
name
you
in.
can't,
as a
so you
parent,
can't take
I
the
don't need to
survey
be
10
anonymous
times or
about it.
15
Yeah, I mean,
times, and then you have representation of who you're surveying.
Right. Yeah, I mean, your decisions aren't as good as the data you get, and
That's
you
right.
take precautions to try to get good data. But
And
Well, and
at
I
the
think
end-
getting it from the teachers would weigh heavily upon us too. So there's not a lot of room there for any type of.
I think it's important for people
Fraud.
to take a look at the book, The Anxious Generation. Let's do an internet search on it. Jonathan Haidt, he lays out the facts. I think you've read it, Dr.
got
Nicely.
through the intro. That's pretty.
Okay, Jamie Soltis has read it. I've read it. You've read it. I think I talked to Chris Benson today. He just downloaded it too. There's a lot of evidence in there, and if you take away the emotion of it and you just look at the facts, it's pretty clear that we have a situation at hand. We have a youth mental health crisis, and it all started with these cell phones. So we want to continue that.
Yeah, that's at the end of the day right? That's where you've got to get to is educating the child and what's best for that child. And so, for me, that's kind of, it may be a tough decision. It's not something, we have a hard time policing ourselves or getting away from, during the meetings, getting away from cell phone usage. I can't imagine what our younger generation's coming through to try and, back away from it from time to time. So I think it is a tough decision, but at the end of the day, I think the final determination for us needs to be how we're educating that child. Otherwise, we let them have them and not worry about it, right?
Right, and I think we need to remember too that we're not just talking to cell phone, we're talking about mobile devices. So we've got watches, we've got lots of things that are coming out.
Yeah.
If I have my watch on, it doesn't matter where my phone is. I'm gonna be able to tell what's on it. So we've got to think about that.
Yeah. Thank
Do
you.
a survey, different stakeholders. Don't make it anonymous. We can kind of control. Just make sure we don't have a lot of duplicates or skewing of the data. With the idea that we would report back on the August 1st work session.
Yeah, it should be noted that if we do go with option C, we are not going to be the first people in the state of Virginia or other states throughout the country that have taken this on. Right now, I think it's scary because it's the unknown, and what I've heard from a couple of people, what about the safety part of it? So we know right now at our elementary, middle schools, option C is happening, and they didn't get parent pushback. In fact, parents endorsed it and supported it. The teachers are implementing it just fine. They've got a tiered system of consequences, and students are actually learning and engaged, and the culture's changed in those classrooms, and there haven't been any safety issues. So if it's not safe for the elementary and middle schools, why would we ever do it for the high schools? We value safety.
Is it really working in the middle schools?
Yes, I talked to Chris Benson today.
Talked
I
to
talked to
Evan
our
Noel.
school principals, they
Yeah,
like it.
principals.
Evan Noel yesterday, same
Yeah.
thing.
And it's
yeah.
been that way for a
Yeah.
while. I mean,
Yeah.
the middle school, we haven't had phone usage ever.
worked.
They've never had.
It's
they've not
worked
been able
real
to do
well.
it.
I asked Mr. Benson, I said, how many, what's your tiered system? And he gave it to me.
2 days ago.
And how many students did you have to get to level 3 with? It was a handful, it was less than 10 all year. 3, where they had to get to level 3.
Well, I think that's why it's imperative we try to get something before school starts back, so that's the expectation out the gate. And then you're going to have some problems up front, but once those problems are resolved and people see the consequences, then everybody's going to fall in line to the policy.
Yeah, and just with Johnny's point, I mean, and Ms. Clemens said the same thing. I mean, the action you took last year in January, right? And there's a lot of divisions of the state we're trying to get to where what you already adopted. So we've got, you know, a good, strong policy in place. So the consideration here is, do you want to, you know, go further? And there are divisions who are doing that as well. So
And
it's
if you
definitely a top topic.
If you start midstream with a lesser policy and try and change it January 1, I think that would be very difficult to get people to. So I think it would be good if we can start the year with whatever we're going to do. And Brent, one other thing, we may, I know I'm probably not going to be able to attend the August 1st work session. I know you said you
I'll be on
weren't.
vacation.
I don't know if we'd want to move that back. It doesn't matter, but there's only going to be 3 of you, or if everybody's going to be here August 1st. Y'all will be
Are you
here.
gonna be
Not
in
next
town?
week. Next week. I'm
Okay.
So 2 of us won't be here for the August 1st, but
And certainly, you know, y'all can discuss that. And I would say.
They'd give you
go out
another
if you-
week's the only
if you
reason.
Did, based on data and based on the feedback, decide, yeah, we want to go ahead and make some further adjustments. We probably would also need to look at maybe trying to schedule a special meeting to do that if you did want to do it at the work session in terms of taking action, you know, again, before August
Well,
15th.
and if any questions come up, I mean, I would be comfortable speaking with staff or speaking amongst the board members to get, you know, any information that I may miss during the meeting, so. We don't necessarily have to move if 3 of you are gonna be here.
I think at the end of the day, people have to understand that our job here on the school board is to put policies in place that are best for our students and for our staff, to support them. And that's exactly what we're trying to do right here, right now.
Anybody have any other questions?
All right,
You're good?
I'll get that out as soon as possible in the next couple days.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nicely. Thank you, Ms. Newcomb.
Thanks.
we can't make it easy for you.
It's gotten tighter back here.
Item 2.07, policy
Yeah, that's
6.16,
right.
final assessments and exemptions for full-year credit-bearing courses. Mr. Mike Riley.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Of course, as you know, we've been making tweaks to our final assessment policy since this time last year. And one of the things that came out of the committee of teachers that I worked with was looking at changing how it counts at the end of the year. The way it had read last year, it was just any weight the teacher wanted to make it in the fourth 9 weeks. We changed that to be the weight of an assessment in the fourth 9 weeks, but that committee really felt like it should count towards the entire second semester. The suggestion coming out last summer was 10%. We felt like it was really too close to the start of the year to make an adjustment like that. So what we'd like to do at this point in time is make one final adjustment, and the only change would be, instead of it being the percentage weight of a major test within the fourth 9 weeks, it would count 10% of the second semester grade, and then each of the 9 weeks in that second semester would count 45% of the 9 weeks, getting you to 100%. So are there any questions? And that's all we're looking to do. Doesn't change anything else in the policy. Everything else that we've done over the past year would remain the same. It would just change that weight.
Just for clarification, I'm sure most of you know, that's what it was before.
Right.
Up until just a couple of years ago. So in fact, like, when we were talking yesterday, I said, when we start teaching in the 90s, it was actually 20%
It was
of
20%,
special grade.
yeah.
So the 10% kind of goes back to that sort of middle ground.
Do you feel like that's a good choice?
I do. I mean, if as a board, when we came a year or two ago,
Right.
we wanted to make sure we kept high standards and so forth. Let's keep final exams. We worked on this whole exemption policy. So our view is, if we're going to have it, it needs to be worth something to actually motivate students.
Right, and that is the percentage that the group we worked with last summer kind of came up with. We talked about the 20%, felt like that might be a little too much. Anything less than 10% actually might even make it less than what it currently is. So 10%, the teachers felt like was a good place for it to be for students that need to take that final assessment.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good number.
So
I
if
do
there
have
aren't,
one question.
Yes, sir.
A little different from the from the weight of the exams or whatever. But I know we had this, and I wish Mr. Legault was here. But we had this issue in summer. Once the student finishes his junior year, you know what I'm going to ask, I guess. So, I had a question from at least one, maybe two students, parents that
Right.
wanted to know why they wouldn't have the opportunity to be exempt
Right.
as seniors.
Right.
I don't,
Well, that did come up, and again, there's two ways you can look at it. Really, officially, you're not a senior till that enrollment year starts, but what we decided to do with the academy, because most of those kids were taking senior level classes, they might be taking government or English 12, and of course, had they waited to the school year to take it, they would have been exempt. What we decided to do was students who had enough credits at the time they started that class in the academy to qualify to be a senior, we would allow them to be exempt from the exam if they met the other criteria.
okay, so we're good on that.
Yes,
Good.
sir.
Thank you.
Do we need that to
So
be
the
on
final
consent?
exam.
That would go on the
action
consent
on,
agenda.
'cause if-
Yep.
Unless there's need for further discussion, it would go
Right.
on consent for next time.
I'm fine with that.
Yep.
All right. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Brown. Nothing else on the agenda. Do you have anything else? Meeting adjourned.